Hey, welcome back to another video. Joshua here with Salty Skills. So a few years ago, I posted an awesome tutorial on how to cast a spinning rod. That video has helped over 3.5 million people to this date. Now, what I'm going to show you is what to avoid when casting a spinning reel. This is perfect for you beginners and even you advanced guys. You might not know some of these tips. So stay tuned. If you implement these in your casting regimen, you're going to be a lot happier and a lot better out on the water. Let's jump in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So the very first tip that I have to give you is from the beginning, right before you go to put your line on, it is very important to do it, have it done via machine if you can. And one of the reasons is being when you put braid on, it's very hard to get it as tight as you need it to be to prevent any type of wind knots and things like that. Another thing that I've noticed is a lot of people want to put their braid on or their line on and they don't allow it to come off the spool in the same direction that it's going on the spool. So when you do that, it doesn't lay right and you end up having a lot of wind knots over time. Now, another very simple and thing that I could tell you that you have to avoid with your spinning reel is over spooling it. I see this time and time again. I know you want to get every ounce of line on there. You just paid $30 for a spool of braid and you don't want it to go to waste. But when you do that, you're causing more harm than good. Don't go past this little lip indicator on the spool and just make sure you don't over spool it because you're going to be very frustrated, especially with wind knots. All right, here's a great tip for you. You have to manually close the bail, and I know a lot of you guys want to argue with me about this on the internet, but it's better for the mechanism. But more importantly, every time you close this by reeling, you're creating a little bit of line twist. When you add the recipe of wind plus line twist, you get bird's nest. All right, so here's one that you probably don't even realize you're doing it. But a lot of people that come on my charters, they actually, I noticed right off the get-go that they want to reel without having any type of tension. One of the very simple things that you could do to avoid future issues on your trip is to lift your rod tip up. So all you got to do is lift your rod tip up and create tension before you start to allow the line to lay on the reel. Doing that will help mitigate bird's nest, wind knots, and all those frustrations. All right, big no-no here. You got a fish on, it's a big one, and she's pulling drag. What you're doing when you're reeling, when that drag is pulling and the fish is pulling line, you are just creating a world of line twist. Line twist is your ultimate enemy with a spinning reel. More line twists, more trouble. So do not reel when line is being dumped from the reel. The way you do it is you pump down. When the fish stops running, you reel down. Fish stops running, reel down. You don't crank, and I see it with my clients all the time. And I understand they don't do it often, they don't do it a lot, so they don't realize they're making a mistake. But if you're just sitting there doing that, as this line isn't going anywhere, all it's doing is sitting stationary and spinning. And it's just spinning and wrapping up. So then what you'll notice, so if you ever notice when someone does that and you just let the lure stay midair here, you'll see that it'll just continuously untwist and unwind. And that's the line twist that you're ultimately creating. So if I was, for example, or my client was to go and make that cast right after doing that, after reeling and reeling while the fish is pulling, there's a good chance that when this line disperses and leaves the reel, you're going to get a bird's nest like I think we just did actually. I heard it. It might have came out. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they do not. So luckily for me, there was a bird's nest or a little line twist when that just left the reel, but somehow it came out on its own. That's sometimes very rare, but I'm glad that it did do that. So that's a great tip that you can use and implement. Hey, before I get to the other great tips for mistakes that you want to avoid when using a spinning reel, make sure you give a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. I highly recommend that you check out this video here. This is on how to cast a spinning rod and reel. I add a lot of great tips on there that'll really help you at least with the curve on learning the spinning reel. It's not a very complex fishing item, but if you know some basic things, it can really make your time on the water that much more enjoyable. With that being said, make sure you give a like, a comment below, and share. What are your biggest obstacles with your spinning reel? Let me know below. And I also want to tell you guys, for every like, comment, and share, I'm going to donate 1 cent to Tampa Bay Watch. Tampa Bay Watch, if you're not familiar, helps with estuaries of Tampa Bay, regrowing mangroves and oyster beds, and ultimately it just helps the Gulf and keeps the waterways clean. So let's jump into some of our next tips. I think you're going to like them. This is a pet peeve of mine when I see this. I see it a lot on the piers, and every once in a while I get someone come on the boat and try to do this on the boat. We push them in, so they never make it back to the shoreline, but no, I'm just playing. But seriously, don't hold your rod and reel upside down, guys. If you're left-handed, we are in 2025 now, switch your knobs and your handles. They're usually universal, but you never hold a spinning reel upside down. So don't do it. Do not do it. One of the other big things that I see oftentimes from new people is when they're fishing with a spinning reel, they don't move their bail up so that way their line is parallel with the rod. The line should never be on the bottom. So you have your roller bearing here, your roller, and everything should be up just like that. So when you're grabbing the line, like for example, it makes it a lot more challenging to try to grab your line when the line is, or the roller bearing is low or on the bottom. So logistically speaking, it makes sense for this to be up top. Just take your bail and move that line up so that way you can grab it just like that, and then click your bail over. Very simple. You would think these little things are insignificant, but they're really not. When you want to be proficient with this tool, these little things truly matter. Since we're on the topic of grabbing the line with your pointer finger or your index finger here, what I see oftentimes is people want to go and they want to grab this whole line with their whole entire finger. Well, that is not what you want to do. You want to have the least point of contact but with the most control. And when you're casting, it's very hard to be accurate and allow this line to come off your finger with any level of control. So what you want to do is, I oftentimes will use the lines on my finger, the natural line. You want to find what's comfortable for you to where that line can barely stay on the finger, but you have control, but where there's the least amount of friction. You're going to get further cast and your accuracy is going to be that much greater if you can figure that out. I also want to state that you always want to grab the rod with your dominant hand. I know that sounds obvious, but I've seen it where people don't do that. So I'm right-handed. This is going to be my control hand. I'm going to hold it horizontally, and you want to make sure everything is fluid in how you're doing things. Bail or roller bearing is up, line is parallel with the rod. Manually click the bail. You'll want 6 to 12 inches of line from your rod tip and your lure. And the reason for that, if you have too much, you don't have great control. If you have too little, you don't have the great momentum of the lure to make that long range cast. So the 6 to 12 inch mark, I would say even 10 inches is probably that optimal length from your line, from your lure to your rod tip. Now, when you're casting this, you want to get in a nice stance, and you want to make sure that you're not using your entire arm. I see that a lot too. It is a very mechanical, and it's a lot simpler than I think people make it out to be. You don't have to use your whole body weight. Now, obviously, if you're surf fishing and you're trying to get a 100-yard cast, that's a little different. A lot of people put their hips, back, and shoulders and arms all into those casts. But when you're fishing and you're on, inshore, and you're focused more on accuracy, it's more of wrist movements and forearms. To reiterate what I'm talking about, I'm going to show you an exaggerated example of what not to do. That's what you don't do. Now, if you do that, you're going to look like Chris Canning, if you're not familiar, and I don't want you guys to look like a Guggen on the water. So the way to do that, I'm gonna get my 10 inches up here. I'm gonna grip this with my index finger. Now, I grab with my left hand the butt of the rod, and then my dominant hand is gonna grab the foregrip of this rod. Now, if you look, this is the motion. Then you're gonna release at a 45-degree angle. Close to a 45-degree angle is what you're shooting for. But look how easy it is. So what you're doing is using the momentum of the lure and the rod, but you're just whipping the rod, and that's why it's good to have a nice 7-foot, 6-inch, 7-foot rod that has that parabolic bend to really send the lure in the direction that you want. But as you could tell, with little effort, little energy, that lure flew a good 40 yards, and I got it exactly where I wanted it. Now, this is gonna be most important when you're trying to get into little tight spots and make accurate spots, because sometimes you have to do that. If you want to catch more fish, sometimes you have to put that bait right into a small pocket. And if you can do that, you'll hook up. Hey, so I hope you guys like this video. If you want an additional video on what not to do with a spinning rod, comment below. Maybe I'll do a part 2 on this series if you find it helpful. Now, you guys may have noticed there's something new on the channel. If you're watching the video, on that lower left-hand corner, it says join. Well, I created a little membership area. It's nothing too crazy, but what it will do is help me to extend more content to you. It's $4.99 a month. You gain little perks. If you feel compelled to do so and you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe and join that. I appreciate the support, of course. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, comment below, and subscribe. Also, a brand new shirt just dropped. It's our new hogfish design, saltyscales.com. I'll leave that link down in the description. That's another way you can show support for us. We really do appreciate it, guys. Hey, I hope you all have a great new year, blessed new year. Hope everybody was safe. And until next time, I'll see you on the water. And just like that, casting off the dock, we got snookaroos that are hungry, guys. Good old mirrodine. Hey, buddy. You do gotta be careful. These mirrodines are gnarly with these hooks. It's good to put inline hooks on these guys. Check that out. Teaching a little bit about how to cast a spinning reel. We got an awesome guy. He's not a paid actor. But he likes to be on camera. Give him a little kiss. Mwah! All right, here he goes. That's a beautiful fish. We got a little brother. Guys, wait till you see this. I know, this is why I can't teach you guys, because I'm always getting distracted by fishing. Look at this little guy. He's about the size of the lure. That's about the cutest little snook ever. Hey, the babies need love too. Look at this. Look how beautiful that fish is. That is gonna be a future 40-inch snookaroo. Let's let him go, let him grow. Let's go. I gave him a 10 on that dive.